Hi everybody, this is Bruce with Habowski Studio, and today we're going to be doing part two of the railroad crossing. I came here early. It's 5 after 7. The light that I was painting this in is about an hour away, so I'm going to work on doing some detailed drawing of some elements in the painting to be prepared for when the shadows are correct and all that. Then I can concentrate on that. A lot of drawing involved in this, and got to take our time. This is the first time I've come back to the site to complete a painting. So we'll see how it goes. I'm excited to try it out. So thanks for joining me, and I invite you to subscribe if you're not a subscriber to see more in the future. Thanks. Bye. Now what I'm doing here is I got it in the sunlight to scrape off any major pieces of grain of sands and everything because it was so windy yesterday. I want to make sure, minimize all those bits getting stuck in the paint. Paint's dry enough here. The sky's still a little tacky. And any major, huge, interruptive kind of ridges in the paint. I'm still going to be using turpentine to thin the paint a little bit. Draw in the details that hold up the signals. And then I'll add, towards the end, the liquid impasto gel to build up some layers of paint here and there. Hi everybody, this is Bruce. How are you guys doing? Thanks for joining me for part two of the railroad crossing. I came back out the next day to finish it up as much as I could. And what I'm doing right now before like I said, mentioned previously, is I got there earlier to work on a few things that I can work on before the shadows the light was gonna be in the right place, about an hour ahead, and just working on reestablishing some layers over the previous paint. It's tacked up enough to paint over in where I'm working. The most difficult problem in this painting is the back side of the signals on the other, in the shadows. Very difficult to understand what's going on back there a little bit to really try to get a grasp of rendering it in paint. So I might do a little more suggestive detail work in that so I don't clutter up this small painting with too much information. I think it can be suggestive in the shadows rather than, of course in the reference photo I have every little detail kind of, I can see it, but I got to try to find a happy balance to get that in there and have enough information to read right and not take away, because it's a very obscure kind of elliptical uh, angles going on, especially with the acute angle that I chose to paint it in the first place. So that was a learning curve. Got to study that more. So I'll probably this part two will be it for this plein air demo, but I'll study it some more, look at my reference photo, and see if I want to really kind of put some effort into finishing this up. And I believe I will. I'll have to get back to you on that. Right now, I'm just working on a little bit of the hardware that supports the signals. Just kind of getting areas that I've already worked on a bit. And we'll come back to you after this next segment here with the voiceover. Now I'm taking my little view catcher. You can buy these any art supply store. And I'm just going to use this little hole. I want to try to find what colors, try to separate it from the subject by holding this up to the subject and comparing, and try to get a match to judge if it's a blue, is it a cool blue, is it a warm blue, and so on. Okay, this is also something else I can work on because the fronts of the signals right in here are in the sun already, so I can go ahead. I'm waiting. Just a little time lapse of blocking that in, getting the next layer on there to get some value. to compare.
Now you saw me moving around on the subject here because we sometimes think we mix enough paint and we don't, and so I'm trying to make sure I have a little bit of the color in both signal things before I might have to mix up some more paint. Now I know what colors I use to mix that paint, but and I'll have a little bit left over before I use it all up so I can match it. But this just helps for the continuity of color in both objects.
So now I'm also too kind of putting little strokes here and there of very little difference in the color of the signal and sunlight to have some variety in that color. And again, using the smaller brush, I like really kind of using that. Really kind of is a nice brush. Just a little time lapse of just applying, getting that color in there. Didn't think you really needed to see that whole thing, so reestablishing the strength of the overhang there on the signal light. Working on that a little more. Trying to clean up and get some crisp edges there. And again, there's a little bit of reflection from the crisscross of the crossing the words railroad crossing. So the light hitting the white of that signage is going to bounce off the top of those shades over the signals a bit. You'll see that, of course, later on. Deciding where I want that little bit of reflection there. It's very subtle. It's not like a glaring, of course, because the surface that the reflection is falling on is kind of muted and aged. It's not a glossy surface. Trying to get some of that signals in the back there worked on to render them out. Very complex back there, and I'll work on, like I mentioned before, I'll work on that in another session in the studio. I see in the reference photo, part of the problem is that the lights behind appear to be at a different angle, tilted in such a way because you got one angle as the road's coming, maybe it bends a little bit, so they have to work those lights can shift. They're not necessarily in line with each other, so that could be the little confusion there. Just a little more time lapse showing the process. I figured you want to see the process rather than keep cutting too much out. Let me know what you think in the comments.
Now I'm not going to be worried about the sky because I can always put that in later. I like the tone of the sky with the balance with the texture and the pieces of the railroad crossing. This is a very complicated subject for me especially. Like I said in a previous video, I would definitely draw this out beforehand, get an accurate drawing, because these elements in here is really becoming a problem. But there's parts I like, so, you know, just gotta go with it. Now I'm going to work on some of the lettering.
Now in the lettering, you got to be careful because it extends off the panel, so you don't want to crowd the letters too much, and so kind of made a mistake in the beginning, so I worked on that, fixing that. Now getting the sheen on the pole, which I really am liking. It's really kind of looking pretty good there, especially as I finesse it a little more with the edges of the pole as it rounds away from the lights hitting it. Getting that reflected light in and all that sort of thing. Really feels like metal. I really like how that's coming out. I'm going to try to intensify too the light in the signal area because it's a little dull. I mean, it's not going to be bright, because a little bit of dust from dirt and everything, a layer of dirt on the light. But I want to do a little more with brightening that up. Even if it's not, I might enrich it a little more just to give it a little more interest. So that's something to experiment with. See, there I am putting in that. I'll study it some more once, of course, this layer, everything kind of sets up, and step away from it for a week or two and see what I feel about it after that. It's just really kind of understanding what's going on in those reflections as the sky reflects into that signal in the shadow area. And I mixed up sort of a purpley because it's kind of on the red. And it looks all right. I kind of like it, but I need to work on that a little more. Now I'm putting in some more light tones, going over what I did before. And again, I mixed some umber and a little bit of yellow in there to dirty it up a bit, so to speak, so it's not bright, plain white. It may appear that way in the photograph, obviously, but I'm trying to make it a painting and trying to relate things to one another. Cutting around the letters, I kind of loosely did the letters in a very light dark paint in light thin layer, so I can modify them if needed for spacing and for shape. And they turned out pretty good. Get some potential odd cropping like the C, but people will understand. That's, I guess you get so caught up in like the main elements of the painting, and then you realize you might have problems, like say with the railroad crossing sign, cutting off letters in weird spots. You might have to modify, but you can't modify too much because then it won't look right. So something to think about.
Okay, everybody, this is going to do it for session 2 here, and like quite a bit of it. There's other parts that obviously need work still, and I want to thank you for joining me. We'll do a little critique of it when I get home, pack everything up and head home. And very difficult subject, very ambitious, and learned quite a few things. Not every session, not every outdoor experience is going to be great, and you just got to go with the flow. So thank you for watching the video, and if you're not a subscriber, I invite you to subscribe. Take care, and until next time, bye. Okay, I'm back at the house. We got it pulled out of the panel box, and overall, I like it. There's a lot of information I still need to do to it, and I like the composition. I like the angle. Execution-wise, it needs some help, but it was a very ambitious project for plein air painting, and learned a lot, like I mentioned before, that I will definitely, on something like this, draw it out first. Maybe I'm driving by somewhere, I see something and at a certain time of day, and I know, okay, I'll write down on the sketch the time of day, but then I'll sit there and maybe do a drawing very detailed and have it drawn out before I get to the plein air site. That'll save time, or get there very early, maybe an hour and a half before the time, to draw it all out, so I can just slap in color at the proper time when the light's just right. So some ideas, but hope you enjoyed watching the video, and I'm going to pan in here for a few close-ups. Check it out. I really like how the pole has that sheen to it. That I do like. Of course, the signal, the circular parts that are facing the sun will need a little more detail, but I think I might take some photos I took of the scene and decide if I'm going to go on with it. And of course, right in there where the sky's not painted, I'll fill that in. I was at a slightly different angle. That's something to watch out for too when you're this close to the subject. But so I'll paint around those pieces of hardware holding up the signals. I didn't bother with the sky at all today because I know I can just match that paint up again and recut around all the shapes. and so that's not a big deal. So thanks for joining me, checking out my videos, and subscribe to my channel and share this video with your artist friends. Thanks for watching it.